Joining us now is Wyoming's lone Congresswoman, Harriet Hageman. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us.
You asked some excellent questions and make some very good points.
Well, doesn't recognizing Kamala Harris as the potential first female president mean that Democrats know there are two genders?
Well, I think that that's kind of what you have to conclude from this. So yeah, they've got themselves wrapped around the axle just a little bit with this issue, don't they?
Well, they do, and it's just a baffling PR situation in my eyes, at least. And if you're even remotely a student of history, it puts so many groups at odds with each other, and yet they're standing on the same side. The feminists don't seem to be rising up to this very much, and just puts them all in an awkward spot. On a more serious note, the House of Representatives passed the Victims' Voices Outside and Inside the Courtroom Effectiveness Victims' Voices Act, which will ensure that a person assuming the rights of a crime victim is eligible to receive restitution in the form of necessary and reasonable expenses associated with participating in the investigation or prosecution of the offense. This, Congresswoman, was a bipartisan effort. How happy are you to see this head to the president's desk?
I'm happy to see it, and I was honored to be able to be the lead in the House of Representatives on this particular bill. What it does is it just makes sure that the Victims' Restitution Fund is used the way that Congress originally intended it, and that is to make sure that a victim of a crime is compensated and that the perpetrator of the crime actually has to provide the restitution. So what it happens is if someone is the victim of a crime, say they are a child and they have brain damage, the parents will now be able to get restitution from the perpetrator that created that situation, so that they have the finances available to take the child for medical care or to attend court hearings and that sort of thing. So it's just really to try to fix the way that courts have been interpreting the act too narrowly, and so I'm excited that it's going to be passed into law.
No doubt, and certainly having that clarification will help lots of victims and families. You, on a political note, you called Vice President Harris a DEI hire, but Speaker Johnson reportedly hates this approach. Your response?
So the point that I am making is that she is unqualified for this position. Going back to what Joe Biden said when he was running for president, he said that he was going to pick a vice president that was a black female, okay? But in the meantime, what we have learned about Kamala Harris is that she is unqualified to be vice president. Her record is absolutely abysmal. She was rated the most liberal senator. She's to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. She believes in an open border. She believes in providing free health care to illegals. She wants to destroy our energy industry. She is an advocate for the $90 trillion Green New Deal. But what I really want to go back to is when you listen to Kamala Harris speak, do you ever come away with anything substantive and say, she made some really good points on that? What you do when you listen to Kamala Harris speak is you realize that she's entirely vacuous in terms of her intellect. She isn't able to discuss economic policy. She isn't able to discuss energy policy or international policy. She's a failure when it comes to what the one main assignment that she had in this administration. What was it that Joe Biden assigned to her fairly early on? And that was to be border czar. And in the interim time, in the last 3.5 years, over 11 million illegal aliens have crossed that border. So really what we need to focus on is we need to focus on their record. We need to focus on her words. We need to focus on whether we want someone who is this empty-headed to actually be the president of the United States. I personally don't think that this is a job that just anybody can walk in off the street and be successful. I think you need to have someone who is well-read, well-versed in history, understands what happened in World War I, what happened in World War II, how we ended up in Vietnam, what happens in Marxist countries, why we had the Cold War, what we were battling against in terms of Russia, all of those things. But I think that when you sit down, and I don't think this, when you sit down and you have a conversation, or the press has a conversation with Kamala Harris, what you walk away with is a word salad. She is constantly trying to find words just to get herself through the question, but she either never answers the question, or her question is so her response is so bizarre and so non-responsive that you sit there scratching your head thinking, what in the world did that woman just say? So the reality is let's ask the question, is she qualified?
Congresswoman, as a fellow woman, I think you and I both recognize that there's a very specific profile she fits. She's one of those people who loves to flutter her lashes, and as soon as the lights are on or cameras are on her, she loves being in front of the camera, but she has no business being in front of a microphone because the motives are just so mixed up, and it irks, I think, a lot of Americans to see someone this incompetent get so close to power, and now she's running for president.
It does.
Excellent points. I wanted to bring up something else. Oversight project over at Heritage. I don't know if you've been tracking what they've been looking at, but they uncovered geo-tracking data following the would-be Trump assassin, Thomas Crook's frequent home visitor. And that visitor had a device that frequented a building in D.C. housed by an FBI office. The Oversight Project, Congresswoman, is calling for a special commission to be opened on the assassination attempt and not a task force, as is being opened now. Quote, this cannot be business as usual. Business as usual almost got Trump killed. Your thoughts on that?
So really, the power, whether it's a commission or a task force, the power is defined by the bill that we pass. And so I don't know what you want to call it, either one. What my point and how I feel about this is they have to do a legitimate investigation. And I think in comparison, you look at the J6 investigation, that wasn't legitimate. That was a narrative. That was a production. That was they had a predetermined narrative, a predetermined answer that they wanted to give the American public, and so they worked backwards from there. That can't happen with this. This needs to be a legitimate, far-reaching, robust investigation into what in the heck happened here. And if that leads back to people in Washington, D.C., so be it. People need to be held accountable for this. I don't care who they are. I don't care where they come from.
Would you be shocked personally if you found out that there were ties to people in D.C. in all of this?
You know, what I would say is that I am surprised that this happened, what happened with the Trump assassination attempt. I am surprised. At the same time, I am not surprised because I think that there are people within this administration who have been failing at their jobs. And I think that when you see that the Secret Service was headed by that Cheadle woman who was clearly incompetent for the position and not capable for that responsibility, I think that a lot of the roads lead back to her and the fact that the Secret Service was not doing what it needed to do. We have a lot of questions of what happened that day. We need to get to the bottom of it.
Well, we certainly will be watching from afar, and we are cheering you on. Thank you, Congresswoman, for your time.
Thank you.